Okay, good afternoon, students. For this topic, we are going to continue the lessons about data collection methods, which is the part three of our discussion. And there are some few things that we need to identify when it comes to how we can collect data and how we can use these methods in our future activities when it comes to data collection. So let's start. Before we start, the last topic that I have discussed with you was all about the interview uh, process. And then we have ended the topic when it comes to how we can use the telephone interviews and some of now we are going to continue about other methods when it comes to data collection. And then the number one that we need to identify is the observational survey. Let's define what is observational survey. Observational survey is a possible to gather data without asking questions of the respondents. People can be observed in their natural work environment or in the lab setting or in their activities and behaviors that can be noted and recorded. So, for example, nito, people who are doing movements, work habits, their facial expression, when it comes to joy, anger, and their emotions, and some of the body language that can be observed. So, yun yung kailangan natin gawin kapag gagamitin natin sa data collection ang observational survey. Next, paano ba natin ma-structure ang isang observation? So, it is a recording process, a pre-specified behavioral patterns of people, objects, and events in a systematic manner. So, for example, ang kailangan natin bigyan ng observational survey sa classroom. So, we have record the activities that they are doing inside the classroom. And then, for a minutes of recording of that, i-identify natin yung specific nature na anong ginagawa ng mga estudyante based on our research. So matatawag, bibilangin natin the quantitative in nature. Ano ba yung mga common nature na ginagawa nila kapag meron silang activities or lecture sa loob ng classroom. Now, there are two different types of observational survey. Number one is personal observation or electronic observation. So, for example, we are doing a virtual class once a week. So, pwede nating ma-identify kung ano yung mga common nature na nangyayari during the virtual class. So, there are some of the observation na nakikita natin, ano ba yung mga common doon. Di ba yung iba, late na dumarating sa virtual class. Yung iba naman po ay nagkakaroon ng disconnection. And then the other was um, closing their cameras or making in mute. So those are the observation na pwede nating ma-identify. And then, what about the response kapag nasa lecture na sila ng virtual class? Makikita din natin na some or significance sa ating mga online virtual class observation. Okay? So, pag personal observation naman, ikaw mismo nandoon o obserbahan mo yung mga kilos ng mga estudyante, ikaw mismo ang magre-record ng mga behavior or nature ng mga estudyante sa loob ng isang classroom. Observational survey, researcher can play one of the roles. So, kung the researchers group, ito yung kailangan mong identify kapag igagana yung data kapag ikaw ay part of the role. So, number one role is that non-participants, meaning to say, hindi ka part ng classroom, ikaw ay observer. Number two, participants ka. What if you are part of that group and then you need to do this task as the observer? So, ikaw naman yung mag-record mo. Okay? Next. So, pag sinabi natin non-participant observer, the researcher may collect the needed data without becoming an integral part of the organizational system. For example, si researcher might sit in the corner of an office. Okay, halimbawa, sa office ng mama mo, doon siya nag-work. So, mag-o-observe ka doon. Titingnan mo kung sino yung mga pumapasok, ano yung madalas na naging communication nila, at ano yung mga record na laging ina-ask. O what does the manager spend his time with? Observation of all the activities of the managers over a period of several days will allow the researcher to make some generalization. So, halimbawa, for 1 to 3 hours, ikaw ay inas na mag-observe sa isang registrar office. So you have to see and watch and look what are the things that has been spent in the time that you were asked to observe. So ano ba yung madalas na nangyayari during the time that you will ask to do your part? So yun yung kailangan yung generalize, meaning to say, i-conclude mo as one perception, as one perspective, para ma-acquire mo yung survey within that office. Okay? What about participants observer? The researcher may play the role of participants observer. How? The researchers enters the organization or the research becomes part of the work team. So halimbawa, binigyan tayo ng task as a group, and then one of you were assigned as the participants observer. Paano mo siya gagawin? So for instance, if the researcher wants to study a group dynamic in a work organization, then he may join the organization observing group, being part of the group, work group. Meaning to say, kapag ikaw ay naging part ng isang grupo at inassign ka to be the observer participants, i-identify mo kung anong nangyayari doon sa group nila. Ano yung mga behavior, ano yung mga nature of work that they have performed. So yun yung i-generalize mo as part of the participants observer. Next, structured versus unstructured observational study. So, meron tayong pagkakaiba kapag sinabi natin structured versus unstructured. Structured observational study, both the non-participants and participants observer could be either structured or unstructured in the studies. How? What about structured observational studies? Observer has the predetermined set of categories of activities or phenomena planned to be studied. Meaning to say, meron ng in-identified na activities or categories na kailangan niyang i-observe. Na-acquired ba yon o nangyari ba in a specific activity ng isang group work. People can be observed in their natural style, work environment, and their normal activities and behaviors, and can be noted and recorded. Okay? So, sana naintindihan natin yung pagiging structured sa ating differences with this area. Number 2, what about unstructured observational studies? Paano naman natin siya ma-identify? If the observer has no definite ideas of the particular aspect that needs focus, he could record everything that is, meaning to say, wala kang categories na in-identify. In-observe mo lang yung area. At ikaw na mismo ang mag-identify to generalize the focus of the studies. For example, papupuntahin ka sa isang mall. I-observe mo kung ilang senior citizen ang nagpupunta sa mall within this time of activity. Like for example, 12 to 3 p.m. So, meron mga senior citizen na pumupunta sa mall at para mag-shopping o mamasyal sa loob ng isang mall. So, yun yung kailangang may observe. Meron ba siyang companion? Wala? Or saan siya particular nagpunta? So, ikaw na mismo ang mag-identify nung observation. Ikaw na mismo ang mag-gather kung ilan ang na-acquire mo na study or person or respondents na nakita mo during the observational study na wala kang basehan ng categories o wala kang ina-identify na particular behavior on that area. Ikaw na mismo ang mag-acquire nun. So, yun ang pagkakaiba between the structured, observational, and unstructured. So, ulitin ko lang, structured observational studies is meron siyang predetermined set of categories of activities. Meron na siyang categories na kailangan mong obserbahan based on the respondents na kailangan mong i-acquire. Pagdating sa structured naman po, ay walang basis of categories o walang predetermined of ideas. You just have to be particular on the focus, the need focus that you need to be or observe. What about mechanical observation? Ano naman si mechanical observation? Mechanical observation can be used in a machine that can provide data by recording the events of interest as they occur without a researcher being physically present. So films and electronic can be used to record data, such as mechanically observed data are error-free. So, pag sinabi nating machine, gagamit ka ng mga devices na pwede mo i-record yung observation mo o yung i-gather mong data based on observational studies. So, wala ma-identify na error. Bakit? Kasi ni-record mo yung uh, ni-record mo yung event, ni-record mo yung particular activity sa isang community or environment. So, walang mali doon. Kasi makukuha mo lahat ng mga data. Makukuha mo lahat yung observation based on the recorded material. So, ano ba ang advantage ng pagkakaroon ng observational studies? Number one, the data are more reliable and free from respondents' bias. Number two, it is easier to note that the effects of the environmental influence on specific outcomes. Number three, it is easier to observe certain groups of individuals whom are unable to give information, like a small children particularly. Okay, kasi i-record mo na lang, di ba? Hindi mo na tanongin isa-isa. Number four, it captures the attitude, facial expression, other nonverbal behaviors, but cannot capture the thought of the individual. So, ang ma-identify lang natin pag observation ng study, attitude, facial expression, and nonverbal behavior. Pero yung thinking ng isang tao, hindi natin ma-relate. Okay? Number five, observer have to be trained in what and how to observe and ways to avoid observer bias. Maging fair yung observation mo, you have to be trained in a particular observation. Kailangan mong kunin doon. Kailangan ma-identify mo kung ano ba yung needed na focus niya. And paano mo i-apply mo. Okay? So, those are the advantage ng pagiging observational studies kapag i-apply natin siya sa data collection method. Next, what about the disadvantage ng observational studies? It is necessary for the observer physically present unless gagamit camera or mechanical system that can capture the event of the internet. So, nagiging disadvantage kapag ikaw mismo nandoon in a physical aspect. So, ang gagamitin yung material, hindi ka na mahihirapan. Number two, it is a slow and tedious expensive. Nagiging expensive. Bakit? It is very slow. Because you have to particularly wait on the time of record to finish. Okay, nagiging expensive because you need a good quality of recording material. Okay, or devices na pwede natin magamit kapag magre-record tayo ng isang event in a period of time. Okay? Next. Ano naman ang advantage and disadvantage of a summary of observational studies? We have to be particular as the focus as the observation process that we need to look upon. So there are two things that we need to summarize, the participants and the non-participants. So alam na natin kung sino yung participants at non-participants sa ating observation. So, remember lang yung dalawang advantage at yung dalawang process, yung advantages and disadvantages nito. Tandaan natin, the sample size could be increase of less cost. Number two, respondents by gawin mong collection of data. Both behavioral and non-verbal facilities or reaction could be studied. So, yun yung advantage na Sa disadvantage, tandaan natin, observer fatigue could set in, meaning to say, yung stress ma-acquire. Number two, observer bias. Pwedeng maging bias yung mga collection of data na gagawin natin. Number three, observer reliability problems or inter-observer reliability problems. Minsan kasi pag meron tayong inassign na observer, minsan sila yung nagiging particularly problem. Hindi level kasi hindi sila nag-o-observe ng maayos. And then the last disadvantage is the cost of the observer training that could be high. So yun yung advantage and disadvantage in having a summary of observational studies. Next, multi-methods of data collection. So pag sinabi natin multi-methods of data collection, is that data from a different sources and through different methods could improve the goodness of the data. For example, anong gagamitin natin? Mag-i-interview ba tayo? Mag-observation? Mag-questionnaire ba tayo? Same source and other sources of data, or particularly objective measure or physical measurement or counting, etc. So, ano yung example nito? Yung performance ng data natin. So, getting from all the above sources, see how they correlated. Meaning to say, paano naging related ang isa't isa at yung performance ng pagko-collect natin ng data. Kung gagamitin natin siya, kung pagsasamahin natin siya at magiging good quality of data collection ang ma-identify natin. So, sa pagiging observer, meron tayong tinatawag na ethics and the researcher. There are several ethical issues should be while collecting data. This pertain to, number one, those who sponsor the research. Sino ba yung mag-sponsor sa inyo para ma-acquire niyo yung data collection or observation process? Those who collect the data. Sino ba ang magko-collect ng data? And number three, those who offer them o sino yung nag-offer them para i-collect yung data. So these are the ethical issue when it comes to the researcher. What about ethics and the sponsor? So pag sinabi natin sponsor should ask for the study to be done for a better the purpose of the organization, not for any other self-serving reason. Meaning to say, sila yung particular na kailangan yung gawa ng data collection. Okay? Hindi siya manggagaling sa inyo. Kung hindi, manggagaling in a particular kung sino yung sponsor nyo. They should respect the confidentiality of the data obtained by the researcher and not ask for the individual or group response to be disclosed to them and ask to see the questionnaire. So kapag meron tayong sponsor, hindi nila kailangan makita yung in-identify na response ng bawat individual. It has a respect of confidentiality. Although they are the sponsor, but they should be secured in that process. Kahit sila pa rin yung sponsor at sila yung nagpapa-acquire sa inyo na gawin yung survey, there are still process that there is a confidential issue. Meaning to say, hindi nyo pa rin pwedeng ibigay o disclose ang information. Like for example, merong nagbigay ng negative response. So, hindi nyo pwedeng ipaalam sa inyong sponsor kung sino yung nag-provide ng response na yun. O sino yung nagsabi ng gano'n. Okay? So, they should have an open-minded in acceptance the result and recommendation in the report presented by the researcher. So, kung meron tayong researcher na in-acquire, kung ano yung magiging conclusion, recommendation of the survey, yun ang kailangang tanggapin. Hindi pwede maging bias ang magiging result nito. At kailangan may apply yung confidentiality matter ng mga individual doon sa survey. Meaning to say, safe sila. Ethics researcher number one is that treating the information given by the respondents are strictly confidential. And guarding this privacy is one of the primary responsibilities of the researcher. Bakit po? Kasi confidential nga yun. Data yun eh. Okay, hindi lahat ng data ay pwede mong i-disclose. Okay, at kung may mga respondents, kayo ang mananagot kapag ito ay na-disclose. The researcher should not misrepresent the nature of the study to subject, especially in the lab experiments. The purpose of the research must be explained to them. Meaning to say, hindi manggagaling sa iyo yung perspective, hindi manggagaling yung nature of the study, hindi doon sa mga taong nagsagot sa inyong survey. Malinaw po ba? At kailangan nating ma-identify. Ano ba yung purpose ng research mo? Bakit kailangan mo siyang gawa na research survey question? Number 3, personal information should not be solicited. Meaning to say, some information na hindi natin kailangan i-record to respond. Like for example, cellphone number, buong pangalan, address, hindi natin siya pwedeng kunin. Ang pwede lang natin kunin is yung email address nila at yung ibang details na pwedeng maging optional in a particular respondent. Okay? So, if it is absolutely necessary for the project, it should be topped with high sensitivity to the respondents, offering a specific reason therefore. Whatever be the nature of the data collection method, okay, the self-esteem and self-respect of the subject should never be violated. Okay? Next, ethics and researcher. No one should be forced to respond to the survey. Meaning to say, voluntary ang lahat ng pinakasagutan natin. Hindi natin siya forced to respond. Okay? Non-participants of the survey inclusive as possible. His personal values could be easily biased the data. Number 7, subjects should be exposed to a situation where they could be subject to physical or mental harm. Kapag na-expose natin yung situation, particularly on the survey, pwede nating masaktan yung respondent in that particular or yung magiging conclusion ng relation ng inyong study. Pangwalo, there's absolutely no misrepresentation or distortion in reporting the data collected during the study. Meaning, walang misinterpretation, walang maling conclusion at na ma-identify doon kasi ginawa niyo yung survey at nagpasagot kayo sa respondent. Ethical behavior of respondents is also inform us that the subject o kung sino yung ano yung project niyo mismo, once having exercised the choice to participate in a study, should cooperate fully in the task ahead. Meaning to say, responding to a survey or taking part in an experiment. Okay? The respondents also has an obligation to be truthful and honest in response. Meaning to say, kung nagsagot kayo ng survey, walang fake doon. Dapat totoo ang isasagot nila. Para ma-avoid yung fake information at maging truthful conclusion ng study. Now, let's practice also the exercises in a good and bad question. Comment on each of the following questions stating whether they are good or bad and the reason for answer. Do not worry about their scaling. Meaning to say, hindi natin siya i-acquire, hindi natin siya kailangan maging basis. It can be informed, but it will not reflect naman po para doon. If you have been in a company for over 15 years, please indicate the date of your joining this company. Okay? Hindi siya matatawag na good or bad. Okay? At hindi natin siya kailangan i-identify in a particular scaling. Hindi naman siya kasama doon. Number 2 example, my boss is good but excitable in his dealing with others. Number 3, working women should opt not to have children. So, yun yung mga good and bad reason of question na pwede natin ma-identify in a comment pero hindi part ng scaling. Another example, Investment in children's future should be an important goal of the administration. Number 5, this job uses a lot of the skills that the country is to remain competitive. Should we not be spending on research? Ayan. And then, what about the answers? Bad question, recall dependent. Bad. Number 2, bad, double barrel. Number 3, loaded question, an emotional issue for women. Number 4, bad social desirability. Number 5, good question, no problem with the wording. And number 6, bad question, leading question. So, balikan natin si number 1. Ano yung mali doon? Ang mali doon is that, in-identify mo na 15 years ka na sa trabaho, tapos in-identify mo pa yung kailan siya nagsimula. That is a bad question because may privacy po din doon. Number 2, bakit tinawag na bad? Double-barreled. Saan siya nagkaroon ng double-barreled? My boss is good but excitable in his dealing with a... Meaning to say, nagbigay ka na ng good impression, nagbigay ka ng negative impression. Dalawa na, hindi siya nagiging bad. Number 3, bakit siya naging bad? Because it's all about the issue about women. It is not part of observation yon. Kasi personal issue na yon ng mga kababaihan. Number 4, bakit siya bad in social media? Because you are particularly talking about investment about children future. It is not part of the administration, it's part of the family. Okay? Meaning to say, community desirability lang ang ina-identify po para dyan. Number 5, it is a good question. Bakit po? Balikan natin. Because the job is used, this job uses a lot of the skills that I have possessed. Meaning to say, one particular person lang ang ina-identify. Okay? Maayos yung kanya identification of the questions or comments. And then number 6, bad question. Bakit siya naging bad question? It is about the country or leading question yung mo i-identify. Now, let's practice exercises on data collection. What data collection methods would most appropriately can be used for the following and why? Letter A, a study of audience reaction to political speakers. Ano ang magiging sagot doon? Both observation or structured of interviews. Now, letter B, a study of student reaction to how the university is run. Ano ang magiging sagot doon? Probably a question with an open-ended question at the end. So, practice na kailangan nating ma-identify kapag nagde-data collection. So, you just have to read it. Okay? So, those are the things that we have identified when it comes to the last topic of the data collection. Now, there will be an activity for this event. So, paano ko po kayo bibigyan ng isang activity para po dito? Ang gagawin po is, this is a group activity. Okay? You have to do the observational studies. Okay? Saan particularly? Kung meron pong isang event or activity na makikita po sa inyong lugar, okay, pwede po kayong gumamit ng structured or unstructured observational study. You can also use a recording video process or use a machine to record your observation. And then, i-identify po natin yung mga focus ng magiging observation nyo. So, mag-observe lang kayo within today and then look for an activity sa inyong community. For example, sa grocery, kung kayo po pupunta sa grocery, mag-observe kayo ng 10 tao na bibili. Ano yung mga particular o common things na bibili nila? Pwede rin yun. What about sa tricycle terminal? Okay. I-observe nyo po yung nasa tricycle terminal. Halimbawa, Anong lugar ang madalas na may sumasakay sa tricycle terminal? O kaya naman, pwede rin na i-identify nyo po yung ah, ilang senior or adult or kids na kasama doon sa pagsakay sa tricycle. Okay, in a particular. Another example of activities, halimbawa may nag-basketball o merong liga, saan yung naglaban, sino ang nanalo, ganyan. Kasi common na yun ngayon. So, just look around in your environment or there will be one of the member of the group na merong activity mangyayari within today. Kung wala naman, pwede kayong pumunta sa isang particular place na mag-identify ng observational survey. Ulitin ko lang po, by group activity po, kayo po ay mag-observe ng 10 study po na i-identify po. So, kung hindi po nila kayang gumawa ng optional, pwede po silang gumawa ng unstructured observational studies ang gagamitin natin. Okay? You just have to observe the areas. Wala siyang particular na category. Okay, kayo ang mag-identify ng focus. Basta inyo po yung inyong observation. And at least 1 to 3 hours observation kung kaya ng time po. And then identify the focus or the study of behavior. So, ano ba yung study of behavior? For example, dito natukoy natin siya sa umpisa. Movements, work habits, facial expression ng kanilang mga mukha or body language or any that particularly what they are doing. So, yun po ang gagawin natin. Okay, ulitin ko po. Of the study, 10 areas na mag-identify o makuklose inyong observation. And then you use na category with this one and then rate them. Okay, rate them in 1 to 5. 1 is the lowest score and then 5 is the highest score. So, 10 observation, 10 tao. Okay, hindi 10 observation. 10 tao in a particular observation process or study sa isang tao. Okay? Ano yung o-obserbahan nyo sa kanila? Okay, ulitin ko, magre-record po kayo, mag-video recording, pumili po kayo ng isang member na mag-active mag-create ng observation recording, and then kayo na po ang mag-analyze nito. Okay? You can use the Excel to do the table response, and then what is the category that you have identified. Okay? At yun yung magiging ano yung magiging recommendation nyo? Ulitin ko, 10 tao. Choose an event or activity in your community. Kung wala po, pwede nyo gamitin yung sa grocery o kaya sa terminal na tricycle or any particular na kayo ay makakapag-observe. Okay? 10 tao lang ang i-identify nyo and then you will be the one identifying the category after you have and then you have to pass it in our Google Classroom and then submission with me today. Okay po, at yun po ang additional activities natin. Then your final examination will be also posted later on as part of our final term reaction. So ito lang po yung pinakahuling activities natin for this time na in-specify ko po na iyahabol ko sa inyo. So, I hope you can do this for this day. Thank you and God bless po.